Okay, so how does that relate to your God being upset with your beloved?
Oh, ready to go. Okay, well, that's a great question, yes. Because I would have realized that there's two different ways of looking at things.
Right.
It's not my way and the highway, my old. There's two different. So where did it begin? Anytime you're ready to begin.
Okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have Jenny give you a countdown. So we're going to start with a black screen, so I'll be able to put some credits on after the fact.
Yes.
And she's going to count down from 10. She's going to go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then stop counting, but with the hands go.
Jeez.
That's so that I don't get to the end of her voice on the tape.
That's deep.
That's very deep. When she points at you, it's your cue. Don't worry about talking to any of the cameras. We'll just follow you around. And when you're done, what signal are we going to have that you're done with the show?
I'm going to say, if I remember,
Okay.
I'll give you the ending. Sure, why not? It's because that's true of all of us here.
You may only need to say thank you for the show, or thank you for coming, or thank you for listening, and then I'll know enough to.
Good, and then we might have some audience participation.
Okay.
So you want to,
So I'll just let the tape roll.
yes,
and
this audience has said that for a mere $99 a minute, we can put them on.
That's right. Are you going to use this chair, or should I take this? Or
Oh no, I only need this chair. Yes,
Okay.
Someone might be coming late, but who knows? But we can leave it for Elijah. There's an old yes, leave it right. Yes. I want to thank. Thank the camera.
I can get a clock and set it in here, put it on the floor at someone's feet. Yeah. Oh yeah. Jenny will also let you know as 5 minutes are coming along. This is up to you. Do you want a clock to see what time has gone by, or would you like us to signal you?
A clock would be great.
Let me get a clock.
Because this is hard. This is like an hour, wherever we are. They're putting us in this little box, Kathleen. Our box. Who knows? Oh, so I really would love just to, get your questions back and forth. Ask them anyway. Ask them anyway. We're not shy.
If I were to set the clock right here,
Jeez.
we won't see it on the camera. It's a sneaky trick.
It's just in front of Arthur. It's just so cool.
So
So when we get 7 minutes to after 8, that's it, huh?
Well, I'm not going to cut you off, but you watched the time go by, and I was thinking you were thinking about an hour plus some time for contributions.
Yes, this is a brilliant audience, so that might be better than the show. We can get rid of the show. We'll just get. It really is. It's just,
Okay.
so we'll just keep going until Arthur's hungry.
Okay, so you ready to go?
Yeah, ready to go. Yeah, ready or not. Yeah.
I feel anxious.
Oh, and I feel now. You've taken my anxious. I feel okay. Oh, there's all that pressure. This time, yes, time. And she's gonna and she's gonna let us know. Yes, right behind off. All right. Shh. Shh. They asked Jack Benny how we could not be anxious. I'm allowed to talk. You allowed to talk, right? Until she gives us that song. But the light's going on. Ooh. See, they've taken away. We had such good spirit. We were so happy, and now things have got. Look what happens. Look at. Wow. Oh, it gets a lot of solemn. And has that. What? Quiet in a second. Where were we? So I would like this really to happen for us, all of it, myself included. The poet Dante says that in heaven, that's us. The kingdom of heaven is here, yes. In heaven, there is an inaudible laughter that pervades everything. Just a very quiet laughter, so that you've really got this already. You can easily leave. You've got this down. You know this so well. There's an inaudible laughter that invades, that pervades everything. Everything has this night. Wouldn't that be lovely? whatever happens, we can cry, but we can laugh. So this sounds like a good thing, and this is our aim. You probably thought you came just to be entertained. The aim is you can get your money back, double your money back for this show, if you don't have another step toward this inaudible laughter, so that whatever happens, life, death, we can feel this laughter. So that's the goal. So you can find out after an hour if we've got this or not. Now, of all things, the story that helped me find this inaudible laughter is a very frightening biblical story. Fortunately, we have experts in the Bible in our class. It's the story of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham, who was told by God to sacrifice his son. That helped me find inaudible laughter. Isaac's name means he laughs, or he will laugh. And I wondered, how could someone whose father and God almost sacrificed him, why would his name be laughter? And I figured if we could figure this out, if you could be laughter with an experience like that, then we could get that inaudible laughter and laugh at anything. So this evening I'm going to tell you how and with your help, your attention, and hopefully maybe a laugh once in a while, with your help and attention, we will begin to get closer to that inaudible laughter. The first time that I tell the story of Abraham and Isaac, I'm 7 years old. And we're walking in the forest in camp. And we come to a place and we start a campfire. And the counselor says, does anyone know any scary stories? And I'm proud. Yes, me. Even then, I was not shy about wanting to be the center of, I could either be the center of attention or I couldn't get along. Everyone's got their strengths. So he calls me and I say this, there was this mean daddy, Abraham, who heard God say, sacrifice your son. And this daddy took his son to a campfire like this one, tied him up, put him on the wood, and like these marshmallow sticks we're using, he raised a knife, and he was going to kill his son. And only at the last moment, he heard a voice that said, don't hurt the child. Don't do anything bad to him. Why was a 7-year-old interested in a story like this? You think it'd be nice stories, Winnie the Pooh. This is what happens. So I eventually, looking at I don't think any families are dysfunctional. They're all functional. They all make it, because we're here, right? They function. They brought us here. So my particular challenging family, I think this helped me understand why I'm interested in this story. I had a habit, if any of you had siblings, I had a younger brother, and people have characteristics that you don't often, there's some things about them, as lovable as they are, that you don't like. The thing I most disliked about my younger brother was that he existed. I needed that attention, as you know. So my way of expressing my disapproval of his existence was to sit on his arms, because I was 2 years older than him, and spit in his face. I would do this. This was my way, honest, this was my way of helping him become a psychiatrist. He is today. It's a very good, this is my contribution to my younger brother's well-being. The last time he saw this play, he finally came and saw it. And he said he forgives me for this, after seeing this. He forgives me for spitting at him. It took a long time, but he forgives me. So this play is helpful to some of us. Now my mother, in order to tells my dad as he comes in, Michael's been spitting at Leo again. And my father, to let me know that it's bad to pick on people that are smaller than you, comes after me. And he's going to spank me. We have certain unspoken rules that if I put he only hit me on my backside. So if I put my legs around the bedpost, he won't hit me. He'll just try to turn me over and go back. We do this with, it's like a dance, a father-son dance with my backside for half an hour. And then he finally gets me, and he's a fireman, and he really hits me hard. And I'm brave. I'm brave, and I'm losing my... But I'm brave, and we should incorporate this into the story somehow. Yeah. But it is, it's like talking about Isaac. He tied up in the altar. Missed my chance. But I'm brave, and as he's leaving, and I say this to him, I say, "You bastard." And so we play again. He comes in, and he gets me again, and I say, "You bastard." I'm proud of this, you bastard. And he does it again, and I whisper, "You bastard." And he pretends not to hear me. And he knows I pretended not to hear me, but at least he stops doing it. He's going to pretend he doesn't hear me. And then I don't talk to him for 3 days. And my mother comes to me, and she says, "You're hurting your daddy's feelings. And you're really hurting his feelings." And I say, "I don't want to hear this, Ma." And she says, don't you hold your ears when I'm talking to you," and she slaps me. And I say, "Ma," and she says, "Don't you cry. Boys don't cry." So I have to take all of these feelings and, push all these tears inside. And then when we sit down for supper, I go over and tell my father, "Dad, I'm sorry that I'm hurting your feelings. I learned a long time after this is called a forgiveness bypass." And I forgave him, but I bypassed all the feelings I had. They were still in there, waiting to come out at any difficult moment. When I eventually, and my father was kind enough just before he died, perhaps because of this forgiveness bypass, to tell me, "Michael, let me tell you why I think you've loved the Abraham-Isaac story so much." He said, "When you were born, they had rules then where they said, Watson, the psychologist Watson, said only feed the child every 4 hours. Don't spoil the child, right?" And you can imagine, I didn't like that. So I would cry blue, really wanting food. And they wouldn't want to spoil me. And when the 4 hours came, good for me. They were going to feed me, and I said, no. As hungry as I was. No, pride, yes, or spite, whatever it is. And they showed me. My father held me down. Just like I was holding my younger brother. And they took a spoon, my mother did, while I was held down, and forced food like eggs, even though I didn't want it, down my stomach, down my throat into my stomach. And so my father says, "No wonder you liked the story of Abraham and Isaac. We were doing that before you could talk to you." And I tell him, "Dad, there's an old Jewish and Hindu belief that you choose your parents, that we're a spirit floating around, and you choose the particular parents you want. And I love my life. It's been a hard one, as it is for all of us. And I love having been introduced to the Bible in your own unique way, and even the story about laughter. And so I want to tell you, Dad, that I would choose you again." And my father says, "That shows you what a lousy job I did, that you'd make such a bad choice, my son." Honest. Well, I have to escape. Right? We all have to escape somehow. So I escaped to the University of Chicago, where they lived the life of the mind. To just all the, just leave my body and all these, just get away from it. It was the chancellor, the famous chancellor, Hutchins, said whenever he had a feeling, an impulse to exercise, he always lay down until it passed. This was really the life of the mind. What they would do is, it wouldn't say like, how are you when we met? I would say, Arthur, what have you been thinking today? And if it wasn't bright enough, which would not be the case with you, but if it wasn't bright enough, they wouldn't talk to me. It was quite, I was soon very lonely. And so, but human beings are creative. So I started talking to myself. Whatever happens, we have each other. Two heads are better than one. And real deep existential questions like, should I eat the chocolate graham cracker cookies? You have to, those are hard questions. And I would just listen, I said, and whoever I was talking with was kind. I said, oh, come on, you can eat them. I tell a priest that I'm studying, because I'm studying, I have to get into another universe, so I'm studying about, one poet says, that's why I went to the University of Chicago, one poet says, there's a hell of a universe next door. Let's go. That was the University of Chicago. And so I tell a priest there, I say, I've been having conversations with myself, because there's not too many people to talk to here. And he says, Michael, my lad, you might not be just talking to yourself. You might have a watchline to God. And I thought I had a choice. I could either be this lonely, scared kid talking to myself, or I could be being addressed by the great creator of the universe. I didn't know then, whenever offered a choice between A and B, always take C. It's easy to forget that you're like, okay, God, I forgot that. And so then I started having courage. It was God talking to me. So I had, these deep, University of Chicago, deep philosophical, religious questions, like, should I ask out Barbara? And I didn't know what to do, because I'm scared. I'm scared, first of all, that like Barbara will be like my mom, hit me and not let me cry. But my voice says, ask her out, punk. So I'm not going to argue with God. God apparently has, an interest in my dating. And so I say, would you go out with me, Barbara? I call her up, and she says yes. And we go out, and we have a decent time, and eventually I'm afraid to hold her hand. And I ask, God, what should I do? Hold her hand, punk. So I hold her hand. And then what do you do when you come to her door? And God says, give her a kiss, punk. And I tell her, God just told me, honest, I tell her this, God just told me to give you a kiss. And she thought that was touching. She said, oh, isn't that cute? Sure. Honest. And we start going out together. And then I get we get to know one another. And it's time for more than just kissing and hugging. And I'm scared. I'm a virgin. And I'm scared. And she invites me into her bedroom. I thought, and fortunately on her bookshelf, and I'm really like this, because I really don't know. When I would touch her, I would touch her and say, I was just to see, are you going to hit me? Because I was used to that. And on her, and we go into her bedroom, and on her bookshelf is a book called, and you've ever had a book that as soon as you see the title, you're just happy? This was a title that brought such happiness to my heart. Fear and Trembling, Sickness unto Death. Oh, a friend, someone who understands. It was Soren Kierkegaard, the first existentialist, and we're in a room, and I said, excuse me, I need to read a little bit. And I'm reading, and I read this out loud to her. I said, oh, this is about Abraham and Isaac, who I love. And Kierkegaard says, Avraham was asked by God to give up what he most loves, his son. When he gives his son up to God, And then he gets his son back again, infused with the infinite love and energy of God. And Barbara knew I was strange. This sounded a little stranger to her. And then when it was time to be very affectionate, I hear a voice, the same voice of God, say, Michael, give up the person you most love, Barbara. And I tell her, God just told me to break up. And if you were Barbara, you would think that was a little too much. And she said, okay. And we broke up. And then these blows that I remembered from my mother and father. My father's a fireman. And I started imagining in my mind, I had daymares. I imagined an axe wanting to not only chop off my microphone, but chop off my head, which I thought was very frightening, and batter my body. It took me a very long time to realize what a good move. This man is too much in his head. Real, but I didn't know that then. This which I thought was just a great horror, was some part also that could be helpful to me. But when I was just doing this day after day, I decided, again, I had to get out of here. I had to leave the life of the mind. And I escaped again to Israel, where I could live the life of the body. If we weren't on television, we would stop here and get questions. But because I'm a teacher of most of you, except for this honorary husband here. So why don't we just do, tough noogies, guys. Why don't we just do as we would in a class? And let me just stop for a moment and say, are there any questions, feelings, thoughts, or answers so far? Thank you. So I escaped to Israel when I want to live the life of the body. And in Israel, I've been studying all these books. In Israel, I get a job working on a kibbutz in a chicken coop. And one of my jobs in the chicken coop is, I don't know if you knew this, chickens like manure. Everyone's got their hobbies. Chickens like walking on manure. And so my job was to go around with this big machine. I'm not used to this stuff, so it was some ways nice. All alone in this huge chicken coop going for 8 hours, grinding dry manure into the ground with these blades. And after 8 hours, I am covered with it. I'm covered with manure from head to foot. And I go out and I see a rabbi, this is a religious kibbutz, and I say, Rabbi, I feel for the first time that I'm a valuable person. I don't need to talk. I don't need to have brilliant ideas like the University of Chicago. I don't need to say anything. I am valuable because I'm covered with shit. I really felt it, like my skin, I'm okay as I am. I'm just like a plant or a tree. It felt so wonderful. And then he says, this rabbi is smart. He says, now that you don't have to talk, now if he can talk. And so I tell him about why I came to Israel, to get away from the axe. And he asked me this question I would have asked at the University of Chicago. He says, well, who's holding the axe? Good question. And so I look. And of course I see my father. And he says, look again. And maybe I see, is it God telling me something? Or are these just out of my own mind? Is it me? The rabbi says, well, one murderer at a time. Let's start with your father. Ask your father what he wants from you. And so I say, Dad, what do you want from me? And he says, I never wanted you to exist. You trapped me in a lousy marriage as soon as you were born, as soon as you were conceived. Then I say, good boy that I am. Dad, is there anything else you'd like? And he says, love me. These are hard to put together. And the rabbi says, well, if your father can hit you with an axe, you can hit him. A boy doesn't become a man until he kills the father that is in his mind. And I say, I don't want to hurt my father. He says, well, try. He says, just give it a nice little taplet. Bing. Oh, and it starts to feel good. And he says, go on, do it. I say, okay. Wow! Wow! Wow. It even feels good now. And he says, look, what does your father look like now? And he looks like this dried manure all over the place. And he says, okay, now, bend down. Pick up this manure you've been working with in your arms and hands. Well, now then he can no longer hurt you. And he can no longer hurt you. You can love him. And I say, thank you, Rabbi. He says, oh, they're not finished yet. There are 2 more murderers. You can't get away so easy. Who's next, you see? I say, I am not going to do that with God. No way. He says, let me tell you a story. When my wife and I, we make love, she tells me she's like a hard-boiled egg that is rolled on a table. If you eat an egg, hard-boiled egg, you roll it on the table, it cracks open. And then after she's cracked, she wants me to hold her till she comes back to herself. And she says, Chaim, it's always a different pattern when I come back to you. She says, if it's the same after we make love as before, we shouldn't waste our time. Rabbi says, it's the same between human beings and God. They love one another. In this love, there's cracking. It's very deep love, and you crack open. And what happened with humanity is they didn't know how to hold themselves with God after. And so there's cracks all over the world. There's cracks of God. Little sparks of the light of God in everyone and everything, even in the manure. And our job is to find the sparks everywhere, in everybody, in everything, and cradle them the way you cradle your daddy. Cradle the sparks of God till they turn into the fire that you told me about, like the campfire when you were a boy. So don't be afraid to crack open, just like you did with your father, your understanding of God, or the God that's in your head. Crack it open, Michael. Okay. The God that's in my head. Good, Mikhail. Now you took care of murderer number 2, on murderer number 3. God, you can be cracked open, die and be reborn. And now you can leave the kibbutz and go to Jerusalem to discover why Isaac's name means laughter. So I leave the kibbutz and go to Israel. Go to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. And I need to work in the ground again. I'm only happy if I'm covered with dirt. And so I work on an archaeological dig. We're digging up the old city of Jerusalem about 2,000 years ago. So I really feel valuable now. I'm special. It's not just any old manure covering my body. And we're working mostly with Palestinians. The only volunteers are Jews, and the workers who are working with this valuable earth are all paid. They're all paid Palestinian workers helping the Jews find their roots. And when I'm not working in dirt, I'm very shaky, because I don't have all the people in the kibbutz to care for me. And one of the Palestinians, Muhammad is his name, says, you need to go to, at the heart of the old city of Jerusalem, there's a huge rock as big as this TV studio, and it was the rock, this is the place where Abraham was supposed to sacrifice Isaac, and the Muslims, when they came and conquered Jerusalem, have built a beautiful dome around this. It's called the Dome of the Rock, a golden mosque around this huge rock. And Muhammad takes me there, and I just need all the help I could get. And I see him bowing. I've learned the Muslim way of prayer. It really, because I need earth, is to hands in front of me, toes curled back, nose and head on the ground. And I feel, oh my, I'm grounded. God is in the earth. And as soon as I say this to Muhammad, security guards surround me, Palestinian security guards. I say, get up! And I don't want to, I'm stubborn, right? Just like I was all the time. I don't get up. And Muhammad has to grab me and pull me away. And he says, you're not a Muslim, and I think you're making fun of our tradition? And he says, if you really want to find out, he says, Islam means to surrender to God. If you want to find out what surrendering to God is, go to the Dead Sea, because there you can just lie there and you won't drown. You'll really understand it. So I listen to my friend and I go to the Dead Sea, and I must have gone into the Palestinian section, and I have with me my wallet, and I'm a little afraid, you know, because I don't know these people, what to do with my wallet. And I have a little knapsack, and I put the wallet in my knapsack, and then I go and I lie down and almost surrender myself, yeah, because I'm just checking things out. You know, I'm watching this, but it's quite something. You can really, if you don't get tangled on your cords, symbolically too, you can really just do it. Oh, it's an old Spanish proverb, which I say but don't do, how beautiful it is to do nothing and rest afterwards. Oh, and it's very, but I'm still kind of looking, because I'm afraid. I don't know these people. And then when I get out of this, I notice everybody's covering each other with mud, earth again, which seems to be my lover. And they cover you from head to foot with mud. And this Palestinian says, healing, healing, let me do this for you. And I need healing, all the healing I could get. And so he covers me with mud, and I'm still watching carefully my wallet. And he says, your eyes, you need to have your eyes covered with mud. Eyes are the most important thing to be healed. The way we look at the world is what can hurt or be blessings for us. So I quickly close my eyes. He puts this lovely Dead Sea mud on it, and I feel healed. I walk out in the state, you know, the state at times, you know, you just feel whole and healed with water and mud and strangers being kind to me. And I get to my knapsack, and there's no wallet in it. And I think, oh, this nice American boy comes to Israel, and everybody's lovey-dovey, and we're all nice and healing one another, and there's a war going on. What's wrong with you, Michael? What is wrong with you? You just leave your wallet out there and let these people that are, you know, and I walk up to the Palestinians, and I say, you know, you can keep the money. Please give me back the wallet. And they say, oh, you lost your wallet, let us help you find it. And they start looking, and I think they're teasing me. And I say it again and again. And they, about the same number of people as here, two, yes. They walk to their van. They must have been themselves a little concerned, you know, Israel is still in charge here. And if a Jewish immigrant says they must wanted to get out of there. And I don't quite have the courage of the person in the Tiananmen Square. I don't stand in front of the van, but I stand next to it and I say again, you can keep the money. I want my wallet. And they drive away. I have to hitchhike back to Jerusalem. I go to the Y. I have very little money. I have to call to cancel my check. You know, all that stuff that you have to do. Thinking, I don't understand. There's really war. I'm about to check out because I don't have much money. And as I'm checking out, I give my last 10 pounds. I had some money in my room as a tip to the person behind the desk. And he says, oh, by the way, someone returned your wallet yesterday. We came to your room and you weren't there. As if people were going to be in the room in the afternoon, but because I gave him this tip. And he said, a bus driver said you left it under your seat. A bus that went past the Dead Sea, and you had the YMCA receipt because you were staying here, and so he sent it back to us. Blaming the Palestinians for my own. Well, I want to study Abraham and Isaac. And so I go study at a school that will teach us in English and in Hebrew, mostly in Hebrew. It's called Pardes, which means paradise or the Garden of Eden. And I meet this wonderful teacher named Rebecca. And Rebecca tells the story about paradise, which I hope we can all enter and stay in after this evening. Why not have big goals? And she said, this is the secret of how to stay in paradise, because we've all had tastes of it. She said, 4 people came to paradise. One of them was so overwhelmed, they couldn't handle it, right? They just died. Oh, it was just too beautiful. They couldn't handle it. I remember there's a famous poem called April is the Cruelest Month by T.S. Eliot. How could April be cruel like this beautiful December? And I was once feeling very depressed, and my woman friend said, go out and walk into the beautiful forest. And it was just painful to have the beauty try to open me up. And so this person who went to paradise was opened up, and she couldn't handle it. The second person that went to paradise liked it so much that she just stayed there. Well, I'm not leaving here, and just blissed out on it. The third person, it was too much for her, and she just went crazy. You know, people, but there's certain paradise craziness. The one person was able to go to paradise and come back. And this is what they learned that enabled them, and I hope all of us, to go to paradise and come back and be in the world of Massachusetts. This is what she learned. She learned that the absence of God, or love, whatever you want to call it, or joy, the absence of love is love. Or the absence of God is God. That which is in us, which is yearning for love, for God, whatever you want to call it, words don't matter. I mean, in the Jewish mystical tradition, they didn't want to use the word God anymore, so they used the word Ein Sof, which means without end. This is all my Bible teachers told me all these things. They use the word without end. There's something without end that's in us. And one rabbi said that's 2 words too many. So whatever we want to call it, the absence of this feeling of love, of God, of meaning, of health, that is also health. Because that's the part in us that's wanting that wholeness. And that is also holy. And that's why that woman could leave paradise. Whenever she felt the loss of it, she could say, oh my goodness, fantastic, and my Hebrew teacher tells me this, Bible teacher tells me the story. She says, once a rabbi came home to dinner for Sabbath dinner, which is the celebration, and there was no food at all, and he started dancing. And his wife says, you know, how could you dance that we don't have any food at all? And he says, I'm celebrating the fact that I have a marvelous appetite. So I think this is the teacher for me. I really like her. And I'm also very lonely. And I'm starting to shake, and I say, maybe I could get to know my teacher? I don't know what to do. And I say, but I don't really love her. I just want to touch her. I had been touching Earth, and I want to just... And I say, I can't do that. I'm supposed to love somebody first before I touch them. And my body is saying, we want someone to touch. And I said, okay. And then my mind is saying, you don't love her. What's wrong with you? You're going to pollute the holy city, Jerusalem? You have to wait till you love somebody. I say, okay. And then my body starts screaming, we want. So I say, okay. And then and so they start fighting with each other. I understand. And I no longer sleeping at the Y because it was too expensive. I'm sleeping on rooftops. And I hear, and my voice says, go and jump off the roof, to stop this fighting. And I don't want to do that. But the voice says, jump off the roof. And I remember this story, my favorite story. My Bible teacher told me this. She said a man was climbing a mountain, and it was a beautiful day like today, and he got near the top, and he forgot that it snowed like today. And he's starting to slide down the mountain. He slips and falls, and he's quick, and he grabs hold of a tree on the side of the mountain. He holds on for a long time, and eventually even he gets tired, and he looks around, and he sees, as today, one beautiful cloud in the sky, and she says, and then he cries, can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? And that happens, You cry like that, he hears. And the voice says, I hear you, my son. Just let go of that bush and fall into my arms. And our hero thinks for a moment and cries, can anyone else hear me? And I remember this, to always get a second opinion, even if it's God. And so I don't jump. I'm so grateful to her. I don't jump. Because she had told us Israel means to wrestle with God. And even to win. I don't have to listen to this voice anymore. I can be free of it. And then I've got to be touched. And I give in to my body. And I go to my Bible teacher's house. And I knock on her door. And she says, oh, Mikhail, come on in. And I tell her, I really can't even talk to you unless we hold hands. These are interesting lines that I come up with. And she smiles like you do, and we hold hands. And then I tell her I just need to touch someone. And we hug and spend the night. And then in the morning I go back to both my dig and then the school. And then in the afternoon I need her again. And I go to her house, I knock on the door. She's not home. It's her dear friend, her roommate. And I need to touch somebody. I don't care who. I need to. And I tell her the same thing. And she smiles too. And we hug. And we spend the whole afternoon and early evening. My teacher was gone, and then I leave. I feel a little bit better each time, but I need it more. It's something started. The next day I need it again. And I go and I knock. And I hear they're arguing with one another. And my teacher is saying, we said we wouldn't go after each other's men. Why did you hug my student? And you say, I didn't know. I thought it was just a student. I didn't know it was your man. And I think I've polluted the holy city of Jerusalem. When you're very small, you have to, perfect timing. Perfect. Just in the time for the pollution of the holy city of Jerusalem. And I say, I polluted the holy city of Jerusalem. When you're really not doing very much in the world, you have to have large thoughts about yourself. So I think, I alone am polluting it. And so what I do is, this huge act of atonement, I go to the barber and I say, I want you to shave off all my hair, all of it. I feel like there's something wrong about me. They had done that in the French Resistance, or maybe you have seen it in World War II. The women who had made love to the Nazis, their hair was shaven. This is just a sign of shame. And I felt the shame and was all taken off, and I said, even use the razor. And that made me feel good for about 18 seconds. And then I was lonely. Something had opened up, some river needing touch, and I can't help myself. I have to go back there again. And I hear, as I walk in, the roommate says, you're weird. shaved head even after what she's been through. She says to my teacher, "You can have him." And my teacher looks at me and she says, "I dreamt that a Buddhist monk had come into my life. You must be the one." And she takes me in and comforts me. 3 months later, she tells me, "Mikhail, I have a surprise for you." And I say, "You're pregnant?" She says, "No, schmuck, we're pregnant." And I don't know what to do. I say, "Could we give it up for adoption?" She says, "I'm not going to have a baby and then have it ripped away from me." And I am, as you can gather from the story, not exactly in the place to be a father and a husband yet. And I call 2 friends. One couple tells me, I knew this, that they had 2 abortions before they were married. And she says, "Michael, if we had had the children then, we wouldn't have been good parents. And now that we were married, we have 2 beautiful sons." And I call another friend who had two sons also, and tells me after she had 2 sons and was divorced, she was pregnant. And there was no room for her to have another child. And she thought the child had just come to visit her and needed to be there for 2 or 3 months, and then needed to be given back to the universe. And this helped me a bit. But I still tell Rebecca, what a punk. I, who want to be like Abraham, who had a child in the Holy Land, and now when I can do it, people are going to say, "What a stupid story. What a stupid life. And now that you can do it, you hypocrite, you're wanting to have an abortion." And Rebecca looks at me and she says, "I always like stories that have surprise endings." And I thank her for this. A month later, I need especially to atone. It's the Jewish Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. We don't drink anything that we don't even, or eat anything, we don't even brush our teeth. It's the holiest day of the year. I go back to our old kibbutz with Rebecca, my Bible teacher, and we hear my rabbi, I'll translate for you, to give his sermon on the Day of Atonement. And he says, in Hebrew, the word for chet, the word for sin is chet. And you know what that het means? Het means when you have an arrow, when you shoot the arrow, a chet is when you miss the mark. That's all a chet is. That's all a sin is. Missing the mark. When you can try again. Now I want you all to turn to one another and say you forgive each other for missing the mark, for the chets. And I turn to Rebecca and I say, "Rebecca, will you forgive me for missing the mark?" And she says, "Mikhail, I'll forgive you for hitting the mark." And then she turns to me and says, "Mikhail, will you forgive me for my hets?" And I thought somehow it would be funny, or it's too easy, this kind of forgiveness. And I thought it would be also funny, and I say, "No." And she doesn't like that. And she turns away. For the rest of the service, she's kind of sitting this way, and I'm sitting that way. And then toward the end of the service, we hear, "Wah!" And the rabbi herds us all into the basement and tells us the Egyptians and the Syrians, they've attacked Israel on the holiest day of the year. This is a war's going on. And Rebecca tells me, "We've killed the child inside me, and now children outside are getting killed. I can't take this anymore. Michael, when you grow up, come back. It's time for you to get out of here. Go to America. And I go to America and teach people like yourself. I teach adult education in order to learn how to be an adult. Some of us need all the help we can get. And while I'm doing this, this is a cautionary tale on how to be on the, how not to get stuck on an altar. The cautionary tale is my brother says, oh, in fact, I'm going to tell you the story after because our time is getting short. Thanks to Sean Eiffel, we have a clock. So I go back to, I finally, thanks to people, really thanks to people like you, really, I've learned to be more than that. And so I go back to Jerusalem. I think I have finally, I've taught a lot of Bible classes, a lot of classes on how to be happy, how to laugh, and I think I finally understand why Isaac's name means laughter. And I go back to Jerusalem. Rebecca is teaching a class just like this with this number of people, and I say, okay, as I'm comfortable as a teacher, I think I'm going to show you why I now understand why Isaac's name means laughter, and I'm ready to feel this laughter, and we can love and laugh with one another. So I'm going to tell, I want to tell her class, so it's not just something I learned just for myself, and see what she thinks afterwards. So I tell the story of, to just like here, I say, Abraham married the most beautiful woman in biblical times. She's the first woman in the Bible to be called beautiful. Unfortunately, she was also his half-sister. And they didn't have a child. You know, it's hard enough making love to a woman. To make love to your half-sister, your beautiful half-sister, might have been too much. So what happens when you're with someone you really love? I'm going to cry. Someone you really love and want, and there's something stopping it. Stopping the juice of life that from the ground that I was learning to honor, and then it can't come out in love. It turns into what we've been doing this evening. It goes up your body, and it turns into words. words. I'm so sick of it. Abraham hears, so it's like this blessing, juicy energy turns into words and says, you will be a blessing. And whoever blesses you will be blessed. All families on earth will be blessed through you. This man who can't have a family at all, but this energy is coming up. It's turned into words, into a promise. And God is like a great travel agent. The first words he says to Abraham is, go to the land I will show you. And if you have the courage to go, you can discover how you are a blessing, and your blessings extend to everyone. You can be a blessing. So Abraham, well, that's a good deal. He goes to the promised land. There's no baby. Sarah, his wife, is very creative and says, okay, if you can't have a baby with me, try my friend. Hagar, actually Sarah's servant. And it's easy to make love to a servant. And the Bible says Abraham goes in, the Bible doesn't mess around, right? We won't get too graphic here. But the Bible says Abraham goes into Hagar, very simply. And Hagar conceives a child, Ishmael, who's the father of all Arabs. Ishmael means God hears. And Abraham thinks this is his promise. This is the child that's promised him. Many years later, he hears again this voice that says, and the voice is called in the Bible El Shaddai, which means God, my breast. It might have been a goddess, or through Sarah's heart and breast, he was hearing this, saying, I have a child with Sarah. And he says, nah, bless Ishmael. He says, no, Sarah. And since she gave him away, probably, he gives her away to a king, Abimelech. And after she's given away, we're told God does to Sarah what he promised. None of this going into stuff. And Sarah has a son, Isaac. His name then he was called Laughter because they laughed. I would not have a son. My old age. And so there's now 2 sons, Isaac and Ishmael. The day Isaac is weaned, you know how they wean people in those days? They put sawdust around, charcoal rather, around the breast. And so Isaac comes for the breast and he feels the charcoal and he's not into charcoal. And so he goes away and they have a feast then. They celebrate weaning. Actually, we should do that now. They celebrate weaning. At the feast, Sarah sees her son Isaac playing with his big brother Ishmael, and she tells Abraham, no, I want my son to have the inheritance, not the son of the slave woman. Send her away. And Abraham prays, and God tells him what perhaps every husband should hear, listen to your wife's voice. Check it out. Genesis chapter 21. You remember this. Genesis, listen to your wife. That's what God says. And so he, very sadly, Abraham gives Hagar a loaf of bread and a jug of water and sends Hagar and Ishmael out to the wilderness and now has to live just with himself, Isaac, and Sarah. And I imagine every day when he hears Isaac laugh, he must think, is Isaac laughing at me? Because maybe the son that I was sure was mine, Ishmael, is gone. And this one, if you ever lived in that unknowing place, I don't know, is this my son? Isn't it? Is this relationship right for me? Isn't it? That yes and no can really get you. And then he has an argument with, of all people, the king he had given Sarah away to. And if you have an argument with someone, you think of all the bad things they can do. And right after the argument where the king says, would you promise that we'll just be good to each other's children? He goes down to sleep and then it explodes. And he hears, Abraham. And he's able finally to say when he hears this voice, here I am, Hineni in Hebrew. And he hears these words, take your son, your only son, the one you love, Isaac, and sacrifice him on one of the mountains I'll show you. And he gets up. Genesis chapter 22, chops wood in front of Isaac and Isaac's 2 friends. And they go on a 3-day journey. And they don't say anything for the first 2 days. And on the 3rd day, Abraham says to Isaac's 2 friends, you 2 stay here. I'm going to take Isaac and we're going to pray on the mountain. And he gives Isaac the wood to carry. Abraham's carrying fire and knife. And Isaac says the one sentence that's ever recorded he says to Abraham. What would you say? This is the one sentence you could say. Isaac says, Daddy, I notice there's fire and wood. Where's the lamb for the offering? And Abraham says, God will provide a sacrifice, my son. What would Isaac think? The same kind of doubting that Abraham had been going through. They get to the top of the mountain. Some rabbis say, Isaac says, Daddy, I know how hard this is for you. Here, let me help you. Abraham ties Isaac up, puts him on the altar, raises the knife, and at this moment, Isaac owes his life to Abraham. At this moment, Isaac either lives or dies according to Abraham. Every cell in Isaac's body knows I can only live if Abraham chooses to let me live. this moment, they connect as father and son. I owe my life to you. And then Abraham can hear, Abraham, Abraham, don't stretch out your hand against the child. Don't do anything bad to him. I think it was Isaac's two friends speaking. They were no fools. God speaks through all of us, especially children. And Abraham lets Isaac go, sees a ram conveniently caught in the thicket, and can do what I did when I was younger. And kill that ram. Isaac is smart and never sees his father alive again, but his father does arrange a marriage for him. And it's written that Isaac is kind of wandering in the field. If you had this happen to you, you wouldn't kind of be doing a 9-to-5 job either. Rare, meditating, and the woman they've chosen to marry him, Rebecca, comes and it's usually translated, Rebecca sees Isaac and alights off her camel. That's a very kind translation. In Hebrew, it's nafla, which means she falls off her camel, seeing this shook-up man. And then it says that she takes Isaac into the tent of his mother, Sarah. Sarah died as soon as she heard this news, many rabbis think, of what Abraham was going to do to her son. But Rebecca takes Isaac into his mother's tent. And the first time it's recorded in the Bible, it says, Isaac loves his wife. A man loves his wife. Loves. He had been so ripped open, at least in feeling, that all this macho energy, all this judgment, all this patriarch, wasn't there in Isaac anymore. He just needed love and affection and touching. And Rebecca took him in. And that's why his name means laughter. He who had gone through the most horrendous experience, God and his father wanting to kill him, could emerge from that, connected to his father, and been able to love. I can go through that experience and love. And then Rebecca comes up to me and she says, okay, you ready, Michael? Repeat after me. This is my Bible teacher. I'm ready to sacrifice myself for love. I say, okay. I'm ready to sacrifice myself for love. She said, not quite. Try again. Okay, so I say, I am ready to sacrifice myself for love. She says, look me in the eye and say it. I am ready to sacrifice myself for love. She said, oh, that's a good beginning. So thank you for beginning with me, beginning with love.